to our latest episode of Coffee with Alissa. Today, I'm back with Nancy Bells, licensed therapist, to discuss the next topic in our series, retirement transitions. Choosing to retire goes so far beyond the quantitative number calculations that we can do in a portfolio or financial plan, really to find out, should you retire? Beyond, can you retire? So I brought Nancy back to talk with us more about the qualitative factors of choosing to retire. So Nancy, thank you for joining us again. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. Yeah, no, this is a pretty important topic. I know we sort of structure these as having coffee together, but I think I may have mentioned to you that this is something where we should have a full course dinner or maybe even go on a road trip together. There's so much to talk about with it.
Right. There really is. So I feel like retirement, in the traditional sense of the word, has changed so much over the years. So how would you look at it and define it at this point?
Well, I'm glad that you said that, because I do think traditionally we've looked at retirement based on a set age, and 65 has been the number that's always been thrown around. And I think that traditionally came from the notion that many pensions, when people had pensions, and that they were accessible at the age of 65, or full security, Social Security benefits were available at 65. So often that is what we called retirement age. But nowadays, I sort of like to look at it more, and most people do, is that after perhaps hopefully working with the financial advisor, that people have come to the realization that they have enough resources, whether it be savings, pensions, Social Security, that they don't need to rely on earned income anymore, so that they are in a position that financially they could retire.
Yes. And do you think that just because on paper people can retire income wise with what they have covered, do you think that they should?
I'm glad you asked. Not necessarily. I do think that if people, again, have worked with someone and they have come to the realization that they do have enough assets that they don't need to rely on earned income, they then have the option to retire. They have a choice to do that they may or may not want to exercise. And often I've seen when people get to that point, some people choose to retire, that they say, this is what I've planned, I'm ready to be done. Others choose to work for many reasons. Many people have told me that I like my job. Why would I quit? I'm not sure what else I would do. This is good for me still. Some people choose to try and work part-time. If we're in a position that we don't need earned income at the same level, we do have more leverage with our current employer. I've had people go back to their employer and say, hey, I'm really wanting to scale back to part-time, and they have more leverage to ask for that, because if the answer is no, they can walk away. Another option is some people go to work in fields where they're not going to make as much income because they're in a position they can, or some people say, well, I'm going to take a break now and I might come back to the workforce. And I really like for people to be thoughtful and intentional about what they do at this point, because the other thing I've seen is the vision that people sometimes have about retirement and how wonderful it will be. Their reality may not match up to that. And that can be very disappointing. And also with life expectancy being as much longer as it is now, if someone retires, let's say at 65 or at 60, they may have 3 more decades that they're living. So retirement can go on for a long time.
Yeah. I've seen that just with people that I know and with clients. Maybe that first year it's a lot of fun. There's a lot of traveling and going out to lunch and getting on a workout schedule and all of that. But after a year or two, the boredom, I think, tends to kick in.
Yeah.
So, if somebody, again, they're financially able to retire, they choose to leave the workforce, what are things that should be considered so that the transition is smooth and retirement is satisfying?
Yeah. Well, the first thing is, often it really is good for folks to leave, whatever job they've been in for a long time. And often the main thing I hear is that there's a lot of stress with it. And I'm looking forward to not having so much stress. And I think that's always a really, really good thing, because that can deteriorate in health and relationships and whatever. But one thing I counsel people to consider is that work, regular employment provides some other intangible benefits or lifestyle things that we might not realize, but we might miss when they're gone. And these are things to build more actively into your retirement. And those can be represented by, I'm going to give 4 categories, and they all start with the letter S. And so it's structure, social, stimulation, and story. And I'm going to touch base on each of these. Structure. When we're working, we have a structure to our schedule. I knew I was starting here at 9 today. I know how long it will go. We have a routine to our schedule. And some people say, when I retire, I will be so glad that I can not have that routine. But then again, after a certain period of time, they miss that routine, so it is really good. When we have babies, we teach them to sleep according to a schedule, that we as humans thrive on some form of a schedule. So I encourage that to be built in. Second one, social, is, whether we work in person, virtual, hybrid, when we're in the workplace, we come in regular contact with the same people. And we have small social interactions that really, we don't realize that those can be nice things. It's the kind of thing where if we've gone on a vacation, our people at work ask how the vacation was. Somebody says, hey, how's your sick mother doing? Hey, so it's regular interaction. And we may not have that naturally built into retirement. I really encourage people to pursue that. Next one, stimulation. Is that in the workplace, we actually get to utilize our skills, our talents, our knowledge on a regular basis in the work that we do. And we often have an opportunity for more learning. And retirement does not necessarily automatically provide that. And people really do thrive on some of that. It really keeps us active. It's good for brain function. So I encourage building some of that. And then the final one, story. We actually picked the word story, which really stands for purpose. And when we're in the workplace, often the work that we do is geared towards some purposeful endeavor. And we as humans actually really do like to be purposeful. And so I really encourage people in retirement to make sure as they plan their schedule and their activities that some of it's not all recreation, that there has to be some purpose-driven activities. So that's the first set of stuff I encourage people to really keep an eye on with retirement.
Oh, and thank you for choosing words that all start with S so we can remember them.
Yeah.
So what have you observed and just on how people view and use their time in retirement?
Well, when we're working a full-time job, and especially when we're in the stage of life, let's say we're raising kids and we're upkeeping a house, we might be supporting parents, whatever, time is a really, really scarce resource. It has great value to us. If we get a free afternoon, it really does have great value, an extra day here and there off. But when we retire, we have much, much more time available. We have 24/7. So an hour of time in retirement may not have the same value as it did before. It becomes more of a commodity. And so I really encourage people to manage their time, to almost treat it like an asset, like someone working with you would treat a portfolio of their investments. And so just like somebody, if they had a portfolio of their investments, they wouldn't just put it all into like a checking account and let it sit there and have no growth. That what we would do is we would invest it by picking different sectors. We would try and diversify. We would regularly review it and would rebalance as necessary. And when I think about that with time, I really encourage people in retirement, when we talk about sector selection, that's the activities that they get involved in. And really to pick a range of different things, whether it be, like you mentioned, workout schedules. In retirement, we can get better at taking care of ourselves. We can have more time to spend with family and with friends. People often get into volunteering, hobbies, traveling. We were just talking about traveling before we got on the video here, and that people in retirement often want to get traveling more, relaxing more. Also, in terms of sector selection too, I've really been positively felt when I have clients that get into bigger things too. I have some that have gone back and got certificate programs like a master gardener. Or if they get involved in something in their church, like I have someone who does Samaritan counseling, where they stand by and support church members who are in need of support. So those are some of the activities. And I really encourage diversification. So if I have somebody who says, I can't wait to retire, I'm going to golf as much as I can, and I will never get tired of golfing, I will say, you will get tired of golfing. Yes. There's no doubt, you come back to me in a year, and it won't have the same pleasure. But then also the regular review, that when you plan for retirement, it's not like one and done, so I'm retired now, I'm going to pick all my sectors, I'm going to diversify, and this is what I'm going to do for the next 30 years. Nope. That we need to be thinking about some of the other stuff. Our life may have changed. There was a lot of reviewing that went on when COVID hit. People had their plans on how they were going to spend their time in retirement, and then COVID hit and traveling was, down the tubes, couldn't be doing that. So then it's the notion of rebalancing. And the same as they would with a portfolio of money is to figure out, hey, if I can't be traveling now, what else might I want to be spending my time on? Or I've had people that have in retirement helped elderly parents, and then the parents have passed away, and they have a big chunk of time open up, and they say, I'm not sure what I want to do with this. Well, let's think it through. Final thought on that, though, is I'm throwing out all these ideas about utilizing time. But in retirement, with more time available, I encourage people to operate with more margin. When we're working and we have kids and this and that, we're running from one thing to the next. We have no margin. Usually we're flying down the road and eating dinner in the car. You don't need to be doing that when you're retired. You're allowed to leave 15 minutes early for an appointment. That's okay. You're allowed to plan an extra day on the front of a vacation before you go on a big tour or a day on the end. Is to leverage your margin there.
Are there any specific considerations and concerns that come up regularly with retirees that you meet with?
Definitely. One of the main ones that does come up too is related with marriage too, and the impact and expectations on how a couple, if they're both retired, how they will spend time in retirement, how much time together, and what activities. And I really encourage for couples to not plan to be tied at the hip in all activities, because each of them should still have their own individual things that they like, their individual friends, spending time on their own. So, and that is something that you need to be intentional about, because if one person in the couple has fewer activities, they might be relying on their partner to entertain them. And their partner might say, well, no, I'm meeting my friends for pickleball and you don't play pickleball, so I'll see you later. So just be intentional there. Another area that comes up is the impact on other family relationships, whether it be adult children, grandchildren, or other family members. And a common thing I hear often is when people are retiring, especially with women, is they say that I'm concerned that my children are going to be expecting that I will be available all the time for babysitting, no matter what. And they might say, I want to be involved, but I don't want to be on call all the time. Conversely, I've had adult children say, now that my parents are retired, I want them involved, but they show up at every single kids event, every single one. They call me and say, where should I be tonight to spend time with you guys? So it's a time during which I want retirees to be able to set healthy boundaries and to be aware of and honor the boundaries of others.
Yes.
Both ways. Final thing, and this sort of ties back with you, is that I find that retirees struggle often when it comes to some of those big decision makings that involve finances. And those could be things like whether we're going to buy a second home, whether we're going to be snowbirds, around estate planning. I have folks also that ran a family business and they're doing some succession planning. And so it's easy to get really caught up in, and I really encourage them, especially to be intentional and also to pull in, whoever they are working with on their finances for some impartial third-party support there.
Yes, very important. And we certainly are here to help, right? Keep your financial plan up to date, reviewing your asset allocation to make sure it matches your spending goals. All very, very important alongside those qualitative factors.
Definitely. Yeah.
So any final thoughts, perhaps from your own personal experience?
Yeah, I will throw out a few. From my own personal experience, first off, is my husband retired 3 years ago at the age of 67. And he had worked for his whole entire career, over 40 years with the same company. So he was just ready to be done. Now, I'm 62 and I am still working, and I don't know that I will ever fully retire. I'm just someone that I'm really engaged in what I do. I really enjoy it. For me, it's been a second career too, so I intend to stay working. So that's just sort of some of the dynamics of our background, but it layers into some of the choices and decisions that we've made. And so one thing that I've tried to do is to make sure that I don't hold off until retirement to do some of the things that I might have assumed I could only do in retirement. And my main example there is when my first grandchild, Lucy, was born 6 years ago. I was able to rearrange my schedule so that I could babysit her 1 day a week. And then now she's in first grade now, but I spend Wednesdays with her younger brother, Abraham. And so, and that's been a nice thing. That if I waited till I retired, number one, I don't know if I'll retire. Number two, they'd be in school by then. So that was good. Second thing, and this was really a positive for us, is we had originally thought that we would not move out of the home in which we raised our kids until we retired. But there was a lot of things that caused us to revisit that decision. That the home was an older home. It had a lot more steps. It had a lot more upkeep. And we ultimately, 6 years ago, moved into where we live now, which is geared towards it could be the home that we will stay in for the long haul. And so we've been able to get some of the benefits that we had hoped to get with that type of home long before, my husband retired, and I've been enjoying them. The lawn's a lot smaller for me to mow, and I'll be doing that tomorrow after I'm done with Abraham. And then the final thing I want to throw out, and this one's a little, with the market being so volatile over the last couple of weeks, this is an interesting one, is that I encourage being aware that in retirement, we might have more financial flexibility with our spending. And there, I mean, that when we're accumulating assets, often we cut corners, there's certain things that we might not spend money on. But in retirement, we might want to add a little bit margin where we might spend something that we hadn't been. And I don't mean go hog wild. It just might be like when we fly internationally, and now my husband and I get the comfort seats. He's 6'4", so we have a little bit more space. We would have never done that when we were raising kids. And so it took a while, though, for me to lean into that, because my financial personality is as a saver. And so to embrace that financial flexibility just took some adjustments on my part, but it's been good to have done so. But with saying that, I think, again, working with financial advisors like you, Alissa, is very important during this period, because even as I was thinking about sharing that notion, with the market so volatile now, I have to say it causes me lately to think, oh no, I need to go back to that saving era. I need to really watch it. But I know that I've worked with our financial advisor. I know that we have enough diversification there. I know I'm not going to, so again, I just want to lean back into being really financially savvy with individual small micro choices, but then on the macro, working with your financial advisor.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. And that's something that we really take into consideration. We haven't seen true volatility in a long time, but we've built it into our financial plans regardless, using, more conservative rates of return, maybe a little higher inflation numbers, just on expenses and things like that. And then we also, when we talk to people, it's like, hey, let's add some extra costs for healthcare. Let's add some extra costs for travel, even if you don't think you're going to do it now.
Right.
Really important, like you said, to add that extra margin when you are doing your financial plan in your budget, just because, again, once you don't have that day-to-day schedule where your time is consumed, you're naturally going to spend more money because you can't just sit at home all day. So very important to consider that in your plan. So thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah. And I want to mention one thing with that too, is that I think one of the benefits with a financial advisor too is that you can redo some of the projections. I've had some people that aren't working with a financial advisor and they're considering retirement, and they do some of the online tools and things like that. And those are great for the back of the envelope when you're in your 40s and 50s or whatever, perhaps. But to really get a statistically valid projection, you need to work with someone, and it really can help you understand the volatility in the market and how you can manage that in your portfolio.
Yeah, I would agree. What we've seen with some of those online projectors is they tend to really overshoot potential market returns. They have you averaging 10% a year in a 60-40 portfolio. And I'm like, that's really not realistic. So which is why, again, we always err on the conservative side for spending and inflation, both on portfolio and financial plans, just because we'd rather you do better than than not meet up to those projections. So
yeah.
Great. Well, thank you so much for joining me again today. I look forward to our next video on marriage and finance, which will be released in November. And if you aren't already following us, just to make sure you're receiving all of our upcoming content, please follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. You can also sign up for email communications through our website. Thanks, Nancy. Have a great day.
All right. Thanks. You too. Take care. Bye-bye.